Hello, and welcome to Life with Francy podcast, a place where you will find all kinds of conversation like mental health, self-love, self-care, trauma, hobbies, and more. With this podcast, I want to create a place where we support one another in business and personal life. Hope you enjoy this episode. Now, let's get the show started. Before we do, I want to say that this conversation was thanks to Podmatch, an amazing community for podcast hosts and podcast guests to make great collaborations like this one. It has a lot of tools and resources. So now on today's episode, I have the pleasure to talk to Bonnie, and I forgot how to ask for her last name, who is
That's
a
okay. it's Habyan. Just call me Bonnie.
nice. I love it. I am horrible with last names. Who is an author, speaker, and chief marketing officer who works in real estate finance. She recently published her first book called The World According the Best, a funny, unfiltered memoir with life lessons from her mother of 90 years. I can't wait to have this conversation. So let's welcome Bonnie to the show. Tell us, what is life with you?
Oh, well, gosh, I don't, I know this is kind of freestyle, so I'll just go with it. I've had an interesting year. Ever since publishing that book has been quite interesting. And in a move this week, my family and I are moving in a couple of days. So just a lot of change and a lot of positive change this year. The one bad thing that happened is that I did lose my mom, and she was the one
Oh,
I wrote the book about. But I got to tell you, what a treasure. And I am just so happy that I actually took that journey and have that treasure of that book forever.
oh yeah, I'm so sorry, sending you a big hug. And yeah, so it was just stories that you had with her.
Well, it started out as something where all of my nieces and nephews thought for many years she was just a really funny lady. She would just say funny things. So I started writing down, putting in my little notes section in my iPhone as well, all the funny quotes she would say. They would text me some, hey, get this one from Bess today. And that's what we called her, Bess. We never called her grandma or mom. It was Bess. And so as I started to compile all of these sayings, and then I started to interview her and ask her questions about where did this saying from? Why is this important? I started to learn a lot about her generation, about her upbringing, and more importantly, about her love language. I never understood much
Mm.
about why food was so important, why I love you was not much said in that generation. And it actually brought us closer and to a good point. So this book took on its own. I ended up publishing it, and it's just a year ago today that we did an actual book signing at Barnes and Noble near my town where I grew up. And I can't believe it's been a year already, and she was still with us. And that was the last outing she had before she passed in October. And what a very, very special day. Now, during this book, while I was writing it, she developed dementia. So here was a 7 to 10 year process of kind of pulling these things together. And I didn't expect that turn. So the last couple of years were still very funny, but it talked a little bit about getting into that realm of losing someone before they physically pass, mentally, and the challenges that people and caretakers have when in caring for a parent who has dementia. It's not easy.
Mhm. Yeah, wow. Um, your questions were more about brand, but I would like to know more about you and, the things that you have accomplished in life.
Sure. So, boy, I will talk to people and they will tell me I've had an interesting life. And I guess when I look back, I kind of have. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, went to college in West Virginia. After that, I always wanted to be a broadcaster. And so it's so great that podcasting has come out because it certainly scratches that itch. But soon thereafter, I ended up getting a job with the Baltimore Orioles in public relations. It was a summer job. And because of that, I was able to go to different radio stations and do promotions. And I got my first job in radio because of that particular job I had with the Orioles. It was a contest, and it was a contest for Miss Baltimore Oriole. I won the contest and then ended up doing that job for them in the summer. At the same time, was told you cannot date the players. So I'm like, that's no problem. I ended up marrying one. So we ended up dating under the radar, right? No one was supposed to know. And then they found out and they were cool with it because they realized it wasn't like a targeted thing. It just kind of happened. So my husband and I dated after that, got married. We, did the baseball life. I told you I was in Kansas City for a while. We were at a bunch of different cities, and one of the most formidable one was New York City. He played for the Yankees for a bit, so that's larger than life. And then after that, baseball comes to an end. I had just given birth to my daughter, and he was released from the New York Mets, all within like 10 days. And we decided, hey, we can't live in Maryland, which was my hometown. We moved to New York, and neither of us had jobs. And he didn't even have his college degree at that time because they would sign players right out of high school. So we had a lot of things to sort out. And it was probably those 3 or 4 years were the toughest years that we had kind of faced together. Had a newborn, no jobs. I hadn't worked for a few years. I went back to work and worked my way up to a chief marketing officer. I went back, finished 2 master's degrees, one in banking and finance, and then ended up, taking a 15, 20-year journey to climbing up the ladder to be a chief marketing officer, which I absolutely love. And I am blessed to be with a current company that allows me to also be my authentic self. So in addition to kind of, doing all of my branding for them, with this book, took on a new life. I've had all kinds of amazing opportunities, and I'm like this, just trying to kind of go with it, because the bottom line is this, Francy, the bottom line is this. Life is all about connecting. I truly believe that. And this journey has taken me on to new levels of connecting. I would never have met you, right? It's just because of the digital world, post-pandemic, things have accelerated. I meet new people every day through this journey. And that is such a blessing, and has been something that I never really expected. So I will tell people, you do not make money on a book. Do not expect to make money on a book. But the journey and the people and the opportunities that come from it, totally worth it. And I just feel really blessed to have had that honor and to have done it about my mom. What a treasure to be able to pass on to generations to come.
Oh my God. You're like speaking to my heart, because I feel the same way as about my relationship with my mom. Like, I have thought about it, like put it in a book, because it will be so healing, for others in a way. And I love that you share, you said she was funny.
It's really funny. Don't say, I don't think I'm funny. People tell me I'm funny, but I don't think I'm funny. I'm like, but you are funny. She just was would shoot from the hip and say the most bizarre things. And then we'd be like, she's losing it. And then I'd go check it out and I'd be like, you know what? She's right. That is true. I didn't know that. She's right. Just a funny lady, but came from a time when women weren't really encouraged to go to school or to be independent. And she gave me that kind of wisdom, even though she didn't have those opportunities, really encouraged me to be independent. And I, in turn, pushed that to my daughter, who is now 26 and is in L3, which was L3 is your last year of law school. So I think having just a strong influence in your life and telling you can do things and being that positive support can really make a difference.
I love that. And you talk a little bit about personal branding.
I'm all over personal branding.
Yeah.
All over personal branding.
Let's talk about it.
Listen, I would say that probably has evolved, maybe, really I feel like after the pandemic, it got really big. And I'll tell you why. I believe, and anyone who's listening, no one wants to have one person hold all the cards to their future. And I believe personal branding allows you to provide extreme value to whatever current company you're working for, because you're out there branding them. It allows you to show your skill sets, because people won't know unless you tell them, right? I mean, if you think about it, when I am hiring someone, I will Google and try and learn about them. And if I have nothing about them, and then there's another person that's really sharp and polished, I'm inclined to go with the other person who has taken the time to tell me what they do, and they present themselves in a different way. That's just me, and that's all personal branding. I also think personal branding helps you put yourself out there for other possible opportunities. And I will tell you, case in point, the book. that was all about personal branding. I didn't really realize it at the time. And then I was able to harness that and take that and say, okay, listen, I'm a marketer by heart. Let's figure out what is it that you really love and you're passionate about. And I love personal branding. I love anything to do with building a brand, taking someone who wants to position themselves for a career or for success and helping them tell their story. So it's right in line with what I love, and I feel very passionate about it. And I think you're going to see more of it very, very, in every level as we continue to move through this digital age.
I love that. um,
Well, and it's hard though, but I think sometimes people struggle with it. And I will tell you, they struggle with personal branding for two reasons. They're afraid, because if they're working somewhere, they want to make sure their company is okay with it. But I think people are afraid to put themselves out there. They're afraid. Yeah. And so I just recently wrote an article about the steps you need to take to not be afraid anymore. Because the bottom line is, we're really always afraid about what other people are going to say about us. Mm-hmm. And if we can get over that and say, who cares? The only people we should be worried about are the people that are going to be at our funeral one day. Who cares about the rest? And you can block that out a little bit. The value you can provide to others through your lessons, through your knowledge, can really come back to you tenfold. So that to me is probably a really big hurdle. And I would say a lot for women. I think that we as caretakers and as nurturers, it's hard for us sometimes to get out there and tell our story. It doesn't feel natural. But I say, hey, you know what? If you're able to showcase your skills, you've worked hard. You deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, what superpowers are important for marketers in the next 10 years?
Yeah, well, I would say you have to be super adaptive. You have to be able to look at tools like AI and don't feel threatened at all. Embrace them, figure out how to use them. Avid learner, you have to be always willing to learn and learn every day. I think to me that is probably the biggest and most important aspect of a marketer. I think being able to continue to learn, to stay ahead of the industry and to help your company or whomever you're working for to be competitive is extremely important. And I will say as well, 10 years ago, where analytics, AI, all of those things weren't quite as important, that is a good part of a marketer's job now. You have to be able to take information in, figure out how to collect that information, and to pivot and kind of strategize your business plan accordingly. I can't stress enough the impact that I think artificial intelligence is going to have on our entire human world. And I think people were very upset and concerned at the beginning when we started seeing ChatGPT. I also see now the evolution of people realizing I use it as a tool. It's never going to replace a human. But man, is it a great search engine? Is it a great organizer? Is it a great brainstorming session? And there are things that will help increase efficiencies tremendously. I think increase customer experience tremendously. But there will never be anything that will take over that human component that really is able to have that emotional intelligence. AI does not have emotional intelligence. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah.
Has a lot of things, but it doesn't have that. And that ability to judge, to make sound judgments.
Yeah, I get that. I'm really behind when it comes to technology. Usually it's like 3 years from now, like I might try it.
Yeah. And I think I will say it is evolving so quickly that it can be overwhelming. I start scrolling through my LinkedIn, which is my favorite social platform, and I will see all of these various things popping up that I'm like, oh my God, information overload, because it gives you anxiety. Am I doing enough to keep myself relevant? Should I be learning more? I need to catch up on this. You can only do so much in a day. And I think that is a huge challenge for marketers. There's so much coming at you that what used to be kind of, I just put out some advertising, do a little communications. You have marketing tech stacks now that are growing like this because there are so many tools and layers of things that you need to help communicate quicker, to provide a better customer experience, to gather data. We didn't have that 20 years ago. We didn't. And I really believe the pandemic has also pushed us 5 to 10 years ahead of where we would have been. And yeah, and I think we're still catching up from that.
I see that. I see that. What advice would you provide women in today's corporate world?
I would say networking is hugely important. I don't think we are as good as men in doing that. Again, that's because we've probably lagged in coming into the marketplace and into the job place as much as they have. You know, they started probably decades ahead of us in terms of the corporate world. So networking is critical. I also would say, you know what? We need to start creating cords amongst ourselves, help each other. I think networking and saying, all right, as well, you know, Francie wants to be X, Y, and Z. Well, maybe I can put her in touch with someone that I know and vice versa. We need to support each other. And, you know, because the fact is when one of us rises, we all rise. And I really believe behind every woman who does well should be another woman who has mentored her and has her back.
Amen to that. Like it's so hard because a lot of my friends, you know, will be like, "Oh, but it's so hard out there with women not trusting each other or whatever." It's like if we can bring forces together and be like, "Okay, you're good at this, you're good at that," and see
Yes.
each other's um you know, instead of seeing it a competition, more like
Yes.
something teamwork on how can I help you get there faster, you
Oh,
know?
because when you bring a couple women together, oh, you've got to be kidding me. They can rock it. I mean, I've seen it where I live. I'm like, this one's great at design. That one is great at communications. That one is great at pulling people in. She's really good at accounting. That one is really good at, you know, planning parties. Whatever it is, everyone's got their strengths. And if we can all leverage that, it's just like the corporate world. You have to have people and surround yourself with people that can do things you can't do. We can't be the master of everything, you know?
Yeah, and we can't do it alone.
You can't.
We
You
are our
can't.
own motivation and everything else, and we do most of the work, but at the end of the day, we can't do it alone.
No, we can't. And nor should we want to. That's a lot of pressure to put on
Yeah, it
ourselves. And I think
is.
we do that. We do that as women, right? We have to be superpowers. We have to be super this and super that. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting. So no, that's kind of my advice in terms of women in corporate America. Network, help each other. And also, you know what? Get yourself out there and personal brand a little bit. Let people know what you're good at because it'll help everyone around you understand what you do.
I love that. What are 5 things successful people to do yield results?
Oh, I think, gosh, you know what? I think building a personal brand is one of them. They have
Mm-hmm.
personal business plans for themselves, meaning, you know what? I have a business plan for my business. Let me think about how I can make a business plan for myself with key metrics, key KPIs. You know, what's my return on investment? What's going to move the needle for me? Being consistent and persistent is super, super important. I mean, if you do a little bit every day to work towards your goal, you will see movement and progress. You have to be patient. That was 3. And number 4, I've said this one and I can't say this enough, but being an avid learner, you have to
Mm.
continue to try and learn and keep yourself relevant. You know, I think it's extremely important to be out there, whether it's through ebooks, podcasts. You don't have to go to a classroom, just trying to and learning from others, right? Watching what others do and emulating them. And all of those things are very, very important. That was 4. I forgot the 5th one, but I will say, did I say networking yet? I think networking is very, very important.
I would say gratitude.
Gratitude.
I mean,
I like that one. I think that's a real moment important one, right? We're focused so much on being proactive, but what is something that you can have in your heart? And when things don't go well, you know, that you feel gratitude for what you have. Oh, another one, you know how to fail. You have to be able to know how to
oh,
fail.
yes.
Yeah, you have to be able to, because then however you rebound from that, the resiliency you need, for sure. It's really easy to give up.
And it's so funny because most people is failure. For me is success. I'm
That's
afraid
good.
of success. That's why I go to therapy. so so I don't like
What
make
is she telling you
chaos.
in that one? What is she telling you? Listen, you got to stop being
No,
afraid of
it's
that.
the self-sabotage because it's
Yeah.
control. So as long as I have control, and then when it comes to peace and everything is going well, my brain goes like, oh no, don't get comfortable because this is
Yeah.
gonna end soon. So if it doesn't end, I'm gonna make it end because I don't like it. So, but in the past year, I have been doing a lot better where I'm like, oh, there's peace. I like this. I want more of this.
Yeah, I think we have that inner critic a lot. I don't get that
Yeah.
either. I'm just same thing here. You start wondering when something bad's going to happen or something good is going on, right? Like something's coming out to me. I just know it. I feel it. I guess maybe we all feel that way in some way, but it's other people who are able to funnel that into put a different place and don't give it so much attention.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we all have that to some extent. And we all have our demons. We all have our struggles, and it's
Yep.
getting up and trying to be resilient and pushing through it. And I think the gratitude aspect is probably a real healer, really something that if we practice more, maybe would help fill that little bit of a void that we have.
Mm-hmm. I love this. Is there anything else that you would like my listeners to know about you?
No, I think one thing I'd like to leave with them is that
Mm-hmm.
I would give one piece of advice. Love what you do. I am very passionate believing if you love what you do, good things will happen. And we should all love what we do. It doesn't mean that we can be, I'd like to be a movie star. Yeah, well, that's not happening, right? But is there something that is really inside your heart and soul where you feel like you can make a difference every day? And can you do that every day and make a living at it? You can find aspects of that. So if it doesn't feel it, or you don't feel that right now, don't stop looking because you can do it.
I love that. And I'm going to make sure that I write that down and put it somewhere where I can see it because I am the mail lady during the day and a podcaster at night.
Well,
And
good for
let's
you.
just say in one of them, I'm living my best life. The other one, I make it live my
Like
best
I said, you
life.
can't have it all, but you are doing something that makes you very happy. And I am
Yes.
sure I know what goes into creating a podcast and doing all of that. It's not easy. So good for you. Good for you.
Thank you. And I love it. I love you sharing, a little bit about your mom and getting us, to get a glimpse of the life that
Yes.
you had with her.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm actually applying to do a TED talk about her. So
Oh, I
uh
love it.
we'll see. We'll see. It's gonna
Yeah.
again, right? Who
Yeah.
knows? If you don't put yourself out there, you don't know. So
You will never
don't be
know.
afraid of success.
I love it. I'll work on it. Yeah, links and things where my listeners can find you.
I am all over LinkedIn. That's my favorite. I'm also on TikTok now and my website, meetbonnieh.com, because Habyan is a bad name just to ask people to spell and remember, like you said at the beginning. So I just do meetbonnieh.com, BONNIEH.com.
I love that. I'll make sure that I put that on the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to another episode. You can find the podcast in all major platforms as well as my YouTube channel. If you like content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube or follow in the podcast app. You can also leave a review on Apple Podcasts that will help other listeners to find the show. I appreciate you and hope you have a blessed day.